Hi, and welcome to this brief lecture on questions, myths and answers. Let me first deal with some of the myths of being old. No references to academic studies, just my own input. Well, although if you wish to research, I'm sure there are plenty of prestigious journals that will have learned articles that support my view. Old people lose their memory. Some clarity may go, but substantial memory loss is not inevitable. Old age is a time of inevitable infirmity. Now, I am not so sure about the word inevitable. Yeah, my senses have slowed, and I am, well, at a greater risk of disease. I accept that, but that does not make me infirm. Exercise is just so important. All old people are the same. Definitely not. I'm much more handsome than some of the people you see on the screens nowadays. Old people cannot learn anything new. Have you ever been to an evening class or to a university of the third age? Old age equates to chronic illness and disability. Yes, there are plenty of age-related diseases, but provided that you make lifestyle choices, no smoking, cut down on weight and alcohol, eat healthily, disease risks will be minimized. Growing old means dependency, probably in an institution. No more than one of the 4 people will stay in a nursing home at any time in their lives. That includes short-term rehabilitation visits. All old people are poor. Well, I am, but my neighbour isn't. Americans 50 and older, who make up just over 1/3 of the population, have 80% of the financial assets and 50% of the discretionary income. Well, when you get older, you don't need as much sleep. Quality of sleep deteriorates, especially if you have to keep getting up to use the toilet. If you live long enough, you're going to be senile. The probability of senility at the age of 65 is only about 5%, but it rises to about 20% by age 85. The term senility is no longer used to describe dementia. Alzheimer's disease is the most common type of primary progressive dementia. Alzheimer's is linked to age. Age means weak, brittle bones. Osteoporosis, which affects both men and women, is preventable and treatable. To minimize the risk, do weight-bearing resistance-based exercises. And make sure you have adequate vitamin D and calcium. It is not so much the quantity of exercise as the type. Older folk like me gain so much from walking, water aerobics, a nice group activity, or even yoga, although I haven't seen any DVDs for yoga men in their 70s. Perhaps Udemy should think about that one. Sexual urges normally cease in later years. What's that phrase? The spirit is willing, but the body is weak. Well, let me tell you, sexual urges go on until the end of life. And if you get too active, they may even cause the end of life. Well, cause it to come a lot sooner than you think. But what a way to go. I say again, do not overdo it. Older folk are alone and lonely. You can live alone and not be lonely. You can also live with someone or some people and be very lonely. Imagine living at home with your family, but due to teenage intolerance, the family see you as a burden rather than a bonus. Now that would be loneliness. The thing is to learn how to be alone without being lonely. Here are 4 suggestions that you can use to relearn the art of being alone without being lonely, from the artist Julia Cameron, who prescribed weekly artist dates in her creativity course, The Artist's Way. Take yourself out on an artist's date. Set aside some time, an hour, an afternoon, to do something that she says will delight your inner child. This could be baking your favourite cake, visiting a local craft store, watching an old movie, or anything else that lights up your creative side. Meditate for a few minutes a day. Turn off your devices and disconnect. Turn off everything except essentials, such as your fridge, of course. So that is television, radio, and especially the internet. Just be with yourself. Initially, you may feel a bit uneasy, even getting tech withdrawal. But in time, you will experience a stronger sense of inner confidence and security in the long term. Journaling. Write stuff down. How you feel. What you'd like to do. What you hope to achieve tomorrow, this evening, or next week. Then check back. Let the outpouring begin. You lose your creativity as you age. There was a George Washington University study found that older adults who joined a choir were in better health, used less medication, and had fewer falls in a year than the similar group that didn't join.
I'm singing in the rain, just singing.
Elderly people in Winchester are taking part in social activities such as singing to tackle isolation. Feeling lonely is not pleasant for anyone, yet it is one of the biggest problems that Britain is facing at the moment, with 75% of GPs saying they see between 1 and 5 people a day suffering from loneliness. It is largely present among the older generations, especially those in retirement.
I've been retired now 18 years, and it was brilliant to begin with. And now I'm beginning to think, what do I do?
Instead of prescribing pills to combat loneliness, Theresa May has announced that by 2023, GPs will be able to direct patients to services that provide social activities, such as dancing, singing lessons and cookery classes on the NHS. Winchester's Live at Home scheme is a great example of what communities are already doing to support people.
In terms of GPs and social prescribing, I think that's a really positive thing. Coming to our groups and activities, people are getting out of the house, they're mixing with people of their own age group, they're feeling part of their community. It's about putting the money in when people need it.
My wife died last year. Makes life a little bit more easy. If you're just sitting at home reading a book or just sitting there watching television, you're not really living, you're just killing time.
Local authorities should look for opportunities to prevent or manage loneliness and isolation when commissioning services. I'm Emily Wilson, reporting for Winchester News Online.
The singers also said they were less lonely, had a better outlook on life, and participated in more activities overall than the non-singing group, who actually reduced the number of activities they participated in during the year. I'm still creative. In fact, why not check me out? Casting Call Pro. Well, what a fine figure of a man I am. And available for hire. Now I'm going to deal very briefly with some questions on healthy aging. Please Visit their website shown at the bottom of your screen for more detailed answers.
Hello and welcome to mmlearn.org. My name is Maria Wellish, and we're going to be spending a few moments together today talking about aging myths and facts. I think there's a lot of stereotypes about aging, a lot of fear of aging, and we sure see a lot in the media that's enough to scare us to death. I'm excited to be presenting this today. I just applied for my Medicare card yesterday, so this is a good time for me to be doing this even for myself. I think it's very interesting that most people age 65 and older believe that they have moderate or severe memory impairment. And the truth is that short-term memory declines, but long-term care memory really stays pretty much intact. It is true that we have a fear of Alzheimer's disease. I don't want to negate that. But I want to tell you that many things that look like Alzheimer's, we need to know, can be something as simple as a B12 deficiency, a thyroid disorder. There are many things, medications that you're taking. So to immediately have a feeling that you're losing your mind, that you're losing your memory, you mustn't be afraid to go and talk to a physician and tell them what you're feeling, get that evaluated. Could it be as simple as some form of treatment or changing some of your medication? So memory impairment. Just remember, the most important thing is, as we go through all this series, there are some things that we can do.
Is memory loss always a part of aging? How much loss is considered normal? Some memory loss does occur. If you find you can no longer remember how to do simple things, you may have something seriously wrong. How much exercise do people over 50 really need? Now, NHS guidelines suggest 150 minutes of exercise a week for adults aged 19 to 64. But remember what I said about overdoing it. Is osteoarthritis a part of aging? And is there a way to reduce the risk even after 50? Lose weight and build strong leg muscles.
I'm 51 years old. Can I build my body? Well, George, the simple answer, if you just want the straight, yes or no answer, the simple answer is yes. Of course you can build your body at any age.
Do sleep needs change as we age? How much sleep do we need after 50? As children and adolescents, we need more sleep than as young adults. However, by our senior years, we need the same 7 to 9 hours a night we had in our teens. If you have 59 seconds, here's how to fall asleep easily. And with that thought in mind, it's time to stop.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. So nice to see you all. I see some familiar faces. I'm Anna Chodos. I'm the co-chair of the course and currently an assistant professor in the Division of Geriatrics in the Department of Medicine here. And I'm very pleased to present this evening with my colleague, Dr. Linda Mackin. Just briefly like to introduce her. She's going to present with me. We're going to go back and forth to talk this evening with you about myths of aging. Oh, also just briefly, Linda is a nurse practitioner and PhD nurse in our School of Nursing and an experienced educator and professor here at our university. So it's really a pleasure to present with her. We had a lot of fun putting this together. I hope it's really enjoyable and informative. So I'm going to get us started. This is our menu for the evening. These are the myths we're going to talk about. It's probably somewhat obvious, but I just wanted to restate what a myth is. A myth is a widely held, or wildly as well, but widely held, but false belief or idea. So most of what you're seeing here is actually false, and that's what we're going to talk about. So the first myth is that older people are either super healthy or super frail. We kind of have these two images of what it's like to be an older person. The second is that you are completely responsible for how well you age. We learned a little bit about the aging biology last week, and so maybe you can draw on some of that, but we'll talk a little bit more about sort of what's true and what's not about that. Third is older people will eventually lose their memory. Fourth is most older people will end up in nursing homes. And fifth is there's nothing to look forward to in older age. I didn't create these widely held beliefs. I am just stating them here. So I thought I would get started actually with a little bit of why we decided to include this topic. There's been some really important work in the last 3 years done by a group called the Frameworks Institute in collaboration with multiple organizations that do aging research and aging policy. And they were hired. They're a MacArthur Genius organization awarded for their work in framing and understanding cultural issues. And in this case, they were asked to work on aging. And so they have multiple reports on reframing aging and how it's time to reframe the way we think about aging. And I just wanted to share some of their insights. They have multiple publications on this. They're all incredibly interesting. Unfortunately, it turns out it's not super easy to just reframe aging. It's actually a little complicated and involved. Mostly what they've done is produce a set of communication tools that we can use to talk about aging differently so that people's views shift a little bit, that the paradigm shifts a little bit in how we think about and communicate about aging. But one thing they did that I thought was really interesting is talk about the swamp. So they identify cultural norms and ideas and then characterize that as a swamp. The reason they characterize that as a swamp is that there are some beautiful, lush things about a swamp, but there are a lot of hiding and not always visible at the surface, dangerous things lurking below. And they use this image of a swamp to remind us that when we're communicating about aging or other issues, they use this framing in other areas as well. But when you're communicating about aging, what's in that swamp? So what do you want to try not to what snapping alligators do you want to try to avoid, basically? And what's fascinating is they do a lot of interviews and they do a lot of cultural analysis, media analysis, to understand what are the dominant ideas in this swamp. So what they've found when it comes to aging is that people, when you talk to them, have at once, so I'm going to start over here on the top left.
I think I'll go for a nap.